Hey everybody, happy Juneteenth. My name is Deborah Nelson. I want to share with you some situation that I have currently going on. I worked at a company called Curtiss-Wright Steam and Air Solutions in Summerville, South Carolina. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina, and I worked at that company for about a year and a half. During the time that I worked there, I experienced discrimination, sexism, wage discrimination, and instances of being bullied by a white male employee. All these instances I reported to HR, and the instance where I was bullied by a male employee, I wrote a letter to the CEO of the company, Lynn Bamford. I didn't get a response from her. It took about 4.5 weeks. And the response that I got came from the vice president through the company email. He said, Ms. Bamford got my package in the mail. It was 4.5 weeks later. And he said that there would be an investigation conducted. The results of his investigation, I never got an update. So anyway, the instance, the male employee that was that bullied me, they told me that situation was handled and that it was confidential. He was never suspended. He was definitely not fired. So I'm not exactly sure how they handled that situation. So as time goes on, my ability to, because what I would do is I started printing emails. Any complaint that I sent to HR, and a lot of it was done through email, I would print the emails. So when I went to print, at some point when I started to, or tried to print emails, they would block my ability to do so. So I would send the email or the print jobs to different printers. So I would send, since I couldn't print in the shop printer where I was located, I would send it to production control. And so I was able to print there. And then when they caught on to that, then I would have to send it to the admin printer, and I would be able to print there. So I would have to walk all around the building just to be able to print a job or print an email. So anyway, so the week of September 25th through the 29th, I worked 40 hours that week and we sign our time on Fridays. So on Friday, that particular Friday, which was the 29th, I worked about 5 hours. And I signed my time, which said I worked 40 hours. Came back October 2nd, and my supervisor said I needed to sign my time. I was like, I already signed my time. But anyway, I went in to look at it, and the hours didn't look right. On Monday, they claimed I worked like maybe 9 or 10 hours. They said it claimed I worked more hours than I actually worked. And on Friday, there was a few hours added to my time on Friday, right? So I went in to try to correct it, which I could not. So I sent an email to HR and to management stating that my time did not look right and it needed to be corrected so I could sign it. And I said I didn't want to be accused of stealing time, so, once the corrections are made, let me know so I can go in and sign my time. So they corrected the errors, after which I went to the security manager at the time and asked him for my badge in and badge out times for Monday and for Friday, so I can make sure I was inputting the correct hours. And I sent this information to HR, and the email that I sent to the security manager he responded to it because I was sitting at the computer and I got a notification and I went to go open the email. The email was not there and I just saw the notification. So I got up from my desk and walked to his office and he wrote down the times, right? And so in the email, I let management know that I just got an email from the security manager and it disappeared, right? So after I brought that to their attention, then voila, the email reappears. So anyway, they corrected it, but they tried to manipulate my time, hoping I would just sign it, and so they could have grounds to terminate me, so they could fire me for stealing time. I know what hours that I put in for Monday, and for those hours to not be correct meant somebody went in and changed my time. And on Friday, if I signed my time and I already had 40 hours, there was absolutely no reason for someone to go in and unsign my time and add more hours to it. So now they're tampering with my time, which is a violation with the Department of Labor, which I reported. So they corrected the time, I signed it, and I asked for an investigation, which I never got really a good response as to what happened, of course. Anyway, so now they're tampering with my ability to print, they're intercepting my emails, and they're tampering with my time. And these are all federal violations. Okay, so I go out of the country on vacation. I come back to work, and this is the end of October, 1st of November. I'm sick as a dog. So I tried to work through the week thinking it was just, a little cold and it would pass. It didn't. It was bad. I was really, really sick. So I took off like Thursday or Friday, something like that. So I was out of work for a week, 7 days. So I went to try to file for short-term disability. I was told by another employee that, you only had to be out 5 days. They pay you as long as you have a doctor's note. So I get a call from the claims manager while I'm out, which stated there's a 7-day elimination period. I was like, well, that's not what I was told. And so, so the rules changed all of a sudden. So this employee kept insisting, well, they made a mistake. I'm like, how did they make a mistake? This is what they do. Well, that's not what they told me. I said, well, this is me you're talking about. So obviously the rules changed. Anyway, long story short, they did not pay me for the time that I was out. I only got paid for 1 day. And when I came back, I was pretty much upset with that claims manager, and I let him know that. And then I hung the phone up on him, right? So the call that I had with that claims manager, he reported it to HR. So while I'm out, this HR rep in Pennsylvania calls me like probably a couple hours later asking for a statement. And I was like, what are you talking about? I said, you don't respond this quick when I file a complaint, And so I hung up on her too, right? I get to work. I have a final written warning for those 2 phone calls that I had with the claims manager and the HR rep, which is in the write-up, right? Okay, so as I looked at this write-up later, which I refused to sign, they have dates on there where there was no disciplinary action. But on the write-up, they said on this date, I was, received some kind of reprimand, which was false. That was a lie. So I went to confront the HR person about that. And yes, I was upset. And yes, I was raising my voice a little bit. But I made sure that I was not coming across threatening. And, you know, as I'm talking to her, I'm sitting down. So I told her, I said, I'm filing a complaint tomorrow or whatever. Okay. The manager came after that meeting, and he told me that I was suspended without pay, pending an investigation. Well, we all know what that meant. Anyway, so now back to the issue with the male employee bullying me. He was aggressive, loud, pointing his finger. And mind you, I told you he wasn't suspended, he wasn't fired, nothing, right? Because I was loud. But the real issue was the fact that I was, I guess in other words, as they would call it, a troublemaker, because I was pointing out all the discriminatory practices that was going on that they were doing nothing about. So anyway, long story short, I eventually was fired. They waited about 2 weeks to tell me or whatever. But anyway, I was fired. And so I started filing complaints, right? I filed complaints with the Office of Federal Contractor Compliance Program, which is called OFCCP. They were immediately shutting down my complaints. And that agency, they're supposed to, Curtiss-Wright is a federal government contractor, and their largest customer is the Navy, right? So that's why I filed a complaint with them, because they handle the federal government contractors, making sure that they're in compliance. If your business practice includes discrimination, racism, any kind of federal violations, then as federal government contractor, you're not in compliance. You could either be fined or you could lose your ability to be a federal contractor. So OFCCP was not following up on my complaints. I even had one of the investigators, Antoinette Banks, who told me that OFCCP doesn't handle discrimination and retaliation complaints. You go on their website, all the questions are discrimination and retaliatory questions. So I'm like, what are you talking about? It's on your website. How do you even think I, was filed a complaint? And so that made no sense to me. So I screenshotted the complaint process, which was all discrimination and retaliatory questions. And then she tells me that they don't have any jurisdiction over Curtiss-Wright. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're a federal government contractor, and you govern federal government contractors. So I'm like really confused as to what's going on here. So anyway, OFCCP was no help. They did everything to push my complaint back to EEOC. They were doing everything to push me off and to sabotage my complaint process. I reported them, but I got no help. I even wrote a letter to the Secretary of Labor and OFCCP, Department of Labor. They did absolutely nothing regarding my complaints against Curtiss-Wright. Okay, so after I got fired, which the official fire date was November 21st of 2023. I think it was the 21st. Anyway, I wrote a letter to the White House, to the president and the vice president. Same letter to both parties. Okay. So I figured I would get some assistance. That didn't really happen. I did eventually get a letter saying from the White House stating that they received my letters and whatnot. So during this whole process, I've written 4 letters, and the last letter, the 5th letter to the White House, I wrote on I mailed on June 1st. And there's a tracking number that you get when you send mail. So I was checking the process or the movement of the mail, right? It was sent priority, which normally takes about, 2 to 3 days. So according to the tracking, I sent the letter on June 1st from the Mount Pleasant post office at 3:07 p.m., which was a Saturday. It took 3 days for the mail to get to Columbia, South Carolina, which is about 2 hours away. And it got there on June 4th. Okay, that same letter got to Washington, D.C. on June 5th at 10:07 p.m. Okay, and it was the Washington Distribution Center. June 6th, it departed the Washington, D.C. Distribution Center at 3:49 a.m. June 6th at 9:23, it arrived at the Washington, D.C. Network Distribution Center. June 7th, it arrived on the 6th. On June 7th, it departed the D.C. Network Distribution Center at 2 a.m. And arrived back at the Washington Distribution Center at 2:29. And that's on June 7th. And so it departed on June 7th from the distribution center. And on June 7th, it went back to the network distribution center in DC. So basically, from June 5th up until June 18th is when the letter that I mailed on the 1st was finally delivered to the White House. So from June 5th up until June 12th, the same letter kept going back and forth in Washington, D.C. from the distribution center to the network distribution center. And on June 17th, because I kept tracking it, and I was like, what's taking this letter so long? So I started calling the offices, post office, the United States Postal Service offices in DC to find out what's going on with this mail. I was doing this on June 17th. I called several offices. I wasn't able to speak to anyone in regards to finding out what's going on with the mail. I did talk to a representative that said, that gave me another number that I needed to call. This was on June 17th. Okay, this mail that kept bouncing back and forth from one distribution center to the other in DC, it finally got delivered to the White House on June 18th, the day after I tried to find out what was going on. And it says, individual picked up at postal facility, June 18th at 3:40 a.m. Please tell me what post office is open at 3:40 in the goddamn morning. So what I'm saying is my complaints against Curtis Wright, they're being covered up. There's interference, definitely federal interference from, I don't know if it's from the Navy or what, but it's a crime to slow down the delivery of mail. And there's no post office open at 3:40 in the morning. I'm sorry. And it doesn't take 17 days to deliver mail from South Carolina to Washington, D.C. So I know people probably thinking, well, anything could happen. Okay, so the reason I say that there's interference going on. So during my process of filing complaints and trying to get justice, I filed complaints. I filed 3 formal complaints with the Navy Inspector General regarding the discriminatory practices while I was working at Curtiss-Wright. I filed a complaint. I spoke to someone on the phone, I believe in June, right after the incident where the male employee was bullying me. And he sent me the formal complaint form and a consent form that I needed to fill out. He also sent me a case number, okay? And so I sat on it a little while because I figured that, with me involving the CEO, that there would be something that would be, something would get done. That didn't happen. So I eventually filed my first complaint with the Navy IG in August, all right? So I sent it to the email that I was given by the Navy IG. I filed another complaint in September because the HR representative was, trying to write me up for something bogus, and I filed a retaliation complaint against her. I sent that to the IG. November came, I filed another complaint about all the discriminatory practices that were going on and how Black women were being discriminated against or whatever. So I filed 3 complaints. I never got a response. I figured maybe the complaints were being worked in the background, and I just, they would eventually get around to let me know what happened. No, they were doing nothing. All right. Okay. So I ended up getting fired. And the third complaint that I sent to the Navy, the Office of Naval Inspectors, came back rejected. So I found another Navy IG, and it was the NAVC, which is Naval Sea Command, NAVC Inspector General. So I sent that complaint to them, right? They responded. But basically, after they gave me a case number, a few days later, they were saying that there was nothing that they could do, follow up with my HR department, or whatever the case may be. I found that weird. So as time go on, February 1st of 2024, I send a letter to the Secretary of the Navy, which is, what's his name? Del Toro? Whoever the Secretary of the Navy is, and I sent a letter to the Chief of Naval Operations. Okay, I sent that. I was, at home. I was typing the letter, and I was trying to print the letter, and I kept getting printing errors. Okay, it's weird. So anyway, I was making copies of documentation to send with the letter as well. The copies were coming out blank. So at that point, I realized that someone's hacked into my printer because I couldn't print the letter that I was writing, which means they hacked into my computer as well. I could not print that letter. I could not make copies of other documentation to send. So since I had already saved the document on my flash drive, I ended up going to the library, where I was able to print the letter and make the copies that I needed. And I mailed that letter February 1st. And it went to Washington, D.C. So both the Secretary of the Navy and the Chief of Naval Operations, both parties received the letter, because I have confirmation that they did. I have not heard anything from either one of them. All right. So, I filed a complaint with the Department of Defense Inspector General. And they're supposed to be doing an investigation. I did a deposition with them the first of the year in January of 2024. That deposition took about 2 hours. So I told them everything that happened. I've sent them all the documentation. And I believe in April, I spoke with the Department of Defense IG, and I asked if she's contacted Curtiss-Wright, the company. She told me no. Okay, I filed the complaint 3 months ago. You have all my documentation. So in 3 months, why haven't you contacted the company? And how are you doing an investigation if you haven't contacted the company? Okay, so now the DOD IG is in whatever this is. They're in on it, right? I went out of town in April because I got another job. I was in Arizona doing training. So while I'm at the hotel, and this is near the end of my trip, I'm in the hallway, went to get some ice, going back to my room. I see this lady standing in the hallway, and she's like, leaning over, peeking at me, right? And I looked at her, and when I realized what she was doing, I'm staring at her now. And so she leans back like she's hiding, like she didn't want me to see her. And I was like, okay, all right, this is some crazy stuff going on here. So I let the front desk know what was going on, and I told them I wanted to be moved because I didn't feel safe. And so they moved me. So they had someone following me. And how I know they had someone following me, the day that I was traveling out of state, I just coincidentally get an email from NAVC, Inspector General. I hadn't heard from them in months. And that particular day, they decided to send me an email. Okay, whatever. And so the next day, I get a call from the DOD IG, which was, okay, another coincidence? I don't think so. So as I'm talking to her, she's claiming she didn't get some document that I sent her when I know she did. So I was like, okay, well, I'll send you the document again. And she made a comment about, well, it's like 1 o'clock here or something like that. I never said I was out of state. I never said I was in a different time zone. So why would you need to tell me what time it is where you are when we're both on the East Coast? So that means she knew I was not in South Carolina and that I was in a different time zone. But I never told her that. Never mentioned it, never said a word. So I was like, okay, they're tracking my movement. All right. So all this is going on. And I'm still, going at it, filing complaints. And after the incident with the printer on March 1st, 2024, I was in my car and I was out. I got something to eat, got in my car. And as I'm in the car, I noticed that the car is running, or the screen is like indicating I'm on a call. I'm like, I didn't call anybody. I'm thinking maybe I butt dialed somebody. So I'm looking at my phone and I'm not actively on a call, and I have 2 phones. So neither one of my phones showed that I was on a call. So I was like, what the hell, right? So I was like, oh, okay, they're hacking into my stuff again. So I recorded it this time, and I posted it on all my social media platforms of my car showing that I'm on a call when I'm not on a call, right? So it's on all my social media platforms. So this happened a month after the incident where the printer was hacked into. So when people say, well, maybe there's a problem with your car or malfunction or you need to take it to the dealer. No, there were instances where I know that my other devices were being hacked. So I knew that that was not a coincidence and it wasn't a malfunction with my car, because the printer issue never happened again. The car issue never happened again. So I know that they're hacking into my devices, and they're tracking my movement. Okay. So, as of late, the latest thing that happened, this was last week, I believe, last Monday. I came home from work, and while I'm home, I get someone knocking at my door, all right? So I peeked outside and went to the door, answered the door. It was a white man and a white lady. And they said, oh, we're here because you sent in a request for burial insurance or something like that. And I was like, oh, I don't need it. And he was like, are you sure? You know, I said, and I told him, I said, well, I might have needed it at the time, but I don't need it anymore. It appeared to me that he looked like he might have been wearing a fake mustache. I find it odd that if you were an insurance salesman, that you would just pop up to my door unannounced without emailing me or calling me. Because on this card that he had that looked like my handwriting, I'm sure I left my contact information. So why would you think it's okay to just pop up to my house unannounced? And why is your wife with you? So no, the hell no, they was not getting in this house. It was like, no, I didn't, nope, goodbye. So anyway, I'm not afraid. I've always been like this, kind of fearless. So I'm not afraid, but I'm very aware of my surrounding and what's going on, and I'm on high alert. And you know, they keep coming with the BS. From time to time, my accounts, I get locked out of my accounts. I have passwords for all my accounts on my phone. So for me to get locked out, not one account, but several accounts at one time, which means they're doing these things to frustrate me on purpose. And I have a USA Jobs account, which, if you don't know, it's a website for federal government jobs. And I've had that account probably for almost 20 years. So I saw a job that I was interested in, and I attempted to apply for it, but all my documents were removed. So I had resumes on there, I had saved searches, I had my DD 214, which is your military discharge document, on there. All those were gone. I did not do that. And this is the type of account, I've had it for 20 years. They don't remove your account if you're not active. They don't do that. Like if you load documents into your, on your account, the only way it gets removed is if you remove it. So someone went into my USA Jobs account and removed all my documents, which included my resume and my DD 214. I contacted USA Jobs. They don't know what happened. I did not do that. So in my quest to find justice for the discrimination that I endured while working at Curtiss-Wright, not only has this become an employment dispute or claim, now it's a civil rights violation claim, because my privacy is being invaded. You can't just hack into someone's devices without probable cause. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not on drugs, not selling drugs, not trafficking drugs, or not doing anything that would warrant the federal government tapping into my electronic devices. So that's an invasion of my privacy. My civil rights are being violated. The Fourth Amendment. I'm being tracked, followed, spied on, all that. My accounts are being tampered with. So yes, this has gone way too far. And I hesitated about doing this video because I don't like, I like working behind the scenes. I don't like to be out in front of things. And I just didn't want to take it too far, but it's already been taken too far. At this point, I have to defend myself and protect myself. And me getting the word out into what's happening to me right now is what's going to protect me. And what's going on right now, people, it's very dangerous. Because if they can do it to me, they can do it to you too. And it doesn't have to be because I'm black. It could be just because. If you file a complaint against the wrong person, then the government could come back and, start cyber bullying you, invading your privacy, and following you and doing all these things because they want to intimidate you to be quiet, which I'm not going to do. So that's why I'm doing this video, and it went longer than I anticipated, and I tried to make it short because trust me, it could be a whole lot longer because this has been going on for a while, probably almost close to a year. So I'm finally, trying to get the word out. I need you to like and share this video as much as possible. If you're a civil rights attorney or an employment lawyer, please contact me. If you know a good civil rights attorney or an employment lawyer, please share this video with them because I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to be quiet because at this point, I couldn't turn back if I wanted to, because who's to say that they're going to stop listening to me or messing with my accounts or hacking into my devices. So I have no choice but to see it through because there's no guarantee that it's going to stop. So my name is Deborah Nelson. Please share the video. Please like the video. Contact me. I'm going to see if there's something that we could do. I need your support. I've been doing this alone, and the reason I believe that they continue to ignore me is because I'm alone. So there are power in numbers. So please, like I said, like and share the video, and let's see what we can get done. Bye.